I hate to say it, but if you're a beginner artist, you're probably making one of these 5 mistakes. But don't worry, I used to make them too, and today I'm going to show you how to avoid them. Oh, and mistake number 5, I still forget that one to this day. Make sure to stay until the end for a special announcement. Most of the tips are for traditional and digital art, while I do focus on digital art in this video. Also, huge disclaimer beforehand, before you guys come for me, everyone is free to do art the way they want. I won't forbid anything. Nonetheless, there are some things that I learned over time, and I feel like a lot of beginners tend to do them wrong. Don't come for me, I just wanna help. If you have a different opinion, just let me know in the comments. Without further ado, let's jump into the video. You are too detailed. And no, there's nothing inherently wrong with you being detailed in your work. That is totally your preference and you can do whatever you want. But I remember when I started with art, and also when I saw beginners try out art, also people in my private circle when they started out with art, etc. Let's say you're painting a face and you're, for example, starting with the eye, because eyes are great, of course. They would already go all in for that eye. You know what I mean? You're already doing everything. You're doing the lashes, you're doing it perfectly. And then you're continuing on with the piece. You're creating the second eye, you're creating the lips, the nose, the face structure. And that's when you maybe notice that something is proportionally off. And that's such a shame, because you already put in so much work and effort into one eye. You already made that perfect, probably. And now you're gonna have to erase that because the general composition wasn't right, because the proportions were off. Just something for the whole piece didn't fit. So what I changed over time and learned, and what a lot of other artists do, is they start by blocking out the general shape of the piece how they want it. So they might start with a general shape of the face, indicating where the eyes are gonna be, the nose is gonna be, the mouth is gonna be. They already have the vision. This is generally looking fine, and now I can go into the details. So you're going from the general to the specific, and that helped me a lot. Let me know in the comments if it was the same for you, or if you make that mistake, or if you have anything more to add to that. Fingers away from the airbrush. That's my second tip. Again, it sounds like I'm prohibiting you something, but hear me out. From this to this. Using the airbrush too much can make the piece look too soft and muddy, and that is something I used to do too in the beginning. It was just intuitive to go with that for the shading first. This tip, of course, also applies to traditional art where you can smudge out, but I'm mainly referring to digital art. But at the start, maybe only go with a hard brush. So my tip is start out harsh and then blend out a bit, for example, but don't lose the harsh edges that you already created, because usually in art, when you do the shading, it's usually recommended and a good idea, that's also what I learned over time, to have a combination of harsh edges and soft edges, of smooth areas and harsh areas, so that not everything looks too harsh or too soft, and then you can also accentuate stuff. You can also do this by using the lasso tool. This is the moment where you actually can use the airbrush, as long as you watch out to keep the sharp edges. Or you can start with a harsh brush and then continue with an airbrush eraser. In Procreate, I mostly use the airbrush smudge tool. To be honest, I don't like the smudge tool in Photoshop. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong. It just moves the color around. It doesn't really smudge it out. Let me know in the comments if you have tips for that. A rule of thumb maybe, shadows should be especially soft when they can scatter around, basically. That is especially the case when the thing that is creating the shadow is further away, or when it's just a smooth surface that is going into shadow. It's hard to explain, but you can see it here. For example, when you're painting a neck, the area that is close to your head will have a direct shadow. It is close to the thing casting the shadow, which is the face. So this area is gonna be harsh. There's a harsh edge because it is so close to the face that is covering the light from hitting this area. Whereas the more you move away from this neck area, the more the shadow can scatter around and go more soft. So generally, if the shadow is not a cast shadow per se, it makes sense to go soft in that case. But make sure to not only use the airbrush and keep it also soft. That is something that I did wrong when I started with art. Again, I will not prohibit you from using the airbrush. I just think beginners tend to use it wrong in the beginning. As I gained more experience, I learned to use the airbrush more correctly, basically. What I like to do nowadays as a mixture, for example, is to use the airbrush up front to map out the general direction of the light and what general areas are in shadow, but then I go over with a harsh brush or whatever and then do the real cast shadows, etc. on top of that, or like just harsher shadows, then of course I do blend those out most of the time too, but not all of them, so that not all of it is too soft. Stop chicken scratching. That's tip number 3. That's a term I've heard online. I think it's a thing to call it that way. What is chicken scratching? Chicken scratching is when you go over the same area multiple times, basically, to reach the line that you want. So you could have done it in one line, basically. While this can certainly be intentional, this can also be part of your art style, if done correctly or intentionally, I guess. But I think it can also be a common struggle or mistake even for beginners. If you struggle with this, it could actually come from low confidence in your line work, but no worries. I believe in you. Now you just gotta believe in yourself. This is an inspirational podcast. Just kidding. Honestly, I don't know what to tell you. Line confidence is just practice. But knowing the issue is already a good base to start working on it. Now that you know that it's a thing and something that you can pay attention to, basically. Maybe actively pay attention to it the next times you're drawing. The only thing I can think of that might actually help prevent this as early as possible without practice is doing warm-up sketches. Do some warm-up sketches before you dive into the real deal, basically. Imagine this like an aim trainer, just for drawing. If you don't know what to do to warm up your line work, here's some exercises that you can do, which is mainly drawing circles or drawing lines from different directions so that you basically warm up your line confidence from all different angles and directions. Maybe also doing some cross-hatching. Of course, you can just sketch out some random stuff, just some short sketches, and once you've done that, maybe you're more warmed up and have more line confidence to start. You might be working on the wrong canvas size. If you don't have a specific plan in mind or what you want to do with the drawing later, I get it. You just want to start as quickly as possible. You might just pick the first preset canvas that is available in your tool. Maybe it already has the perfect settings, but maybe not. You might have the situation that you're already drawing and mid-drawing you notice that, for example, when you zoom in, your drawings are too pixelated, it's too blurry, it's not detailed enough. Now you're having issues and you're already midway into the painting, or maybe you also didn't notice it or something, but there's some stuff that you can pay attention to when you're creating the canvas already. So what can you do to fix that, or what simple tiny things can you pay attention to prevent that? I recommend to paint with at least 300 dpi when painting for better quality. dpi stands for dots per inch. Sometimes you will encounter the term ppi instead, which stands for pixel per inch. Basically, the higher the number, the higher the detail that can be visualized in that same area. So, higher number, higher quality. Yay! But also more storage needed. This is also important if you want to make a print at some point. Usually 300 dpi is the standard here. So I just recommend to make sure it's at least that before you start painting, before you have regrets later on. For digital use, you will often find that 72 dpi can be sufficient. Therefore, watch out, don't fall into the trap. A lot of canvas presets might come with 72 dpi in the beginning. Just watch out for that. If that is the case, maybe tune it up to 300 dpi just to be sure. I mean, you can get around with 72, of course, but I just recommend 300 in general. I personally rather work with high resolution because it's harder to fix the quality or get it back later than it is to get lower quality. It's hard to fix it later on. There are some ways, but maybe just put it higher if you can. By the way, DPI is also influenced by your canvas size. So if you encounter blurry lines when you zoom in, that might also be a canvas size issue actually. So make sure with that maybe. I generally like to paint on at least an A3 canvases, but honestly, I go higher when I can. I just had some storage issues on Procreate, so usually I would go even higher. On Photoshop, for instance, I would go with an A2. If you already know that you want to print later, that's a whole topic on its own, to be honest. And there's still a lot that I need to learn too. But to save you some time, here are the most important tips that I've already learned in that regard. There are two main color modes. You have RGB and CMYK. So basically, RGB stands for red, green, blue and uses a combination of these colors to create all the colors that you're using, while CMYK uses cyan, magenta, yellow and black for that. But more importantly, RGB is usually best when it comes to digital purposes or stuff that's displayed on a screen. CMYK is ideal for printed work. Most printing services will have a disclaimer that they need your file in CMYK to print it accordingly. That's important so that the colors are accurate, and we definitely want that. So should you start with CMYK when you paint, since it's usually part of the canvas settings? Honestly, I can't tell you for 100%, but I can tell you what I do. I personally always use RGB when painting. That way they're optimal for my screen, for social media, for everywhere online, etc. If I want to print, which in my case I definitely want to do, but it's usually more of an afterthought, then I prepare my paintings by converting them to CMYK later. In the best case scenario, your printing service has an information about which CMYK profile they're using, then you can apply or download exactly that, and that's gonna ensure the best color accuracy results. If you send an RGB without converting it to CMYK first, it will likely look a bit darker and muddy, more dull. There is a way to convert CMYK in Procreate, but honestly I haven't heard good things about that. I've heard that the conversion is not super accurate because of the color system that Procreate uses or something. Let us know in the comments if you have tips, or maybe you've had good experience with that, or if you have a workaround for that, or how you approach this. I mainly convert my pieces to CMYK in Photoshop now. It works pretty well, so that's what I can recommend if you have Photoshop. If anyone has other tips, let us know in the comments. If you mainly just want to paint digitally and printing is an afterthought anyways, I think RGB would be the standard pick for you. But yeah, let us know in the comments how you do it. Of course, exceptions apply and you might need something different according to your personal situation or for your specific purpose. But these are some general tips in case you just don't know what to do with your canvas. You're not flipping the canvas. Mistake number 5. There's something that in the art community we tend to call painting blindness, which is that once you sit for a long time and work on your piece, you just get used to the way it looks and might not notice if something looks off, weird, or maybe proportionally off or something like that. So it's recommended to flip the piece horizontally from time to time, because then it kind of refreshes your view on the piece and you see it like as if you saw it for the first time right now, and then you're like, oh, no. This does not look good. Let me fix it now before it gets harder later. In most digital art software, you have a simple button to do that, so definitely make use of that. If you're working traditionally, it gets a bit harder, but I remember back in the day, I was still young, I didn't have a lot of tools, I was just simply working with traditional media. I would simply grab my piece, walk in front of a mirror, and have a look at it, and it would still help me to see what exactly might still need fixing. Maybe I'm looking at it and I'm like, something just doesn't feel right. Then I look into the mirror and I'm like, that's it. Now I know it. So yeah, definitely make sure to do that. It's a tip that I still forget sometimes to this day, because you're just so focused on your piece, you forget to flip it once in a while, and then you notice some stuff later on. I think I should actively think about it more, to really do it mid-process, to notice mistakes early on. There are ways to fix stuff later on, of course. There's always something like a liquify tool in most art programs, so maybe do that if you have that issue, but maybe try to do it and think about it, and if you're not, then that's mistake number 5. Bonus tip, you can also step away from your canvas, so real life canvas, or zoom out from your digital piece once in a while. It will help you to see if something is off. Which of these mistakes are you doing or have you done in the past? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video and it helped you maybe, then show it to me with a thumbs up. Let us know in the comments. Make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for more notifications. Let me know if you want more videos of this kind in the future. Special announcement time. I want to do something like an art submission of the month. So if you have some pieces and you simply would like some more exposure and a free shout out, send them to me with the link below. Drop your socials, your name, and I'm gonna pick a few once in a while and blend them in my videos at the end. So thank you all very much for your support. I would be happy to share your works because art deserves to be seen. Thank you. Bye.